With China's rise as a global player, its business and political reach has extended deep into Latin America. CGTN's Paulo Cabral spoke to an expert about the evolving relations between Brazil and China.
Vinicius Viera is an international relations professor at the University of São Paulo. Like many scholars in Latin America, he's been looking with increasing interest into the relations between the region and China, which have grown significantly in recent years, to some extent taking over the once unquestioned dominant role of the United States. Vinicius Viera, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
And I'll start with a very broad question. What's the importance of China for Latin America? What's the importance of Latin America to China? Let's start with this later. Why does Latin America matter to China?
Well, Latin America matters for China because it's one of the largest suppliers of raw materials, and without raw materials, China couldn't have had its boost in the last 2 decades, in the last 20 years or so. And of course, it's a space for China to build its power in the world, to become a global power. So they are likely to take over the United States, or at least to be as equal, as important, as relevant as the United States in political terms.
And what about from the point of view of Latin America? What's important? Why is China important for Latin America?
Latin America sees in China a counterpoint to the United States and perhaps for European influence in the continent. In the beginning of the 2000s, late 90s, China starts emerging as a global actor that offers an alternative for Latin American countries. Well, much criticism exists about this kind of new colonial relationship that exists between Latin America and China, with which I partially agree, but under a Latin American standpoint, at least that could offer an alternative to dependence from Washington in terms of investment, in terms of trade.
There is a trade war going on between the United States and China. How much is this impacting the relations between China and Latin America? And I mean, are these impacts just circumstantial, some short-term thing, or could this really have long-term consequences?
At this stage, I don't see any demands on the part of Washington or Beijing to take clear sides, but let's suppose that the trade war is just the beginning of a major tension between the United States and China. That day will end up coming. So, to summarize, that will be a very complex game, and I think eventually who will win will be the economic side, namely those who have interests in trading with China, given that at the end of the day, what matters is the economic performance. Several studies demonstrate that Latin American countries, presidents, they are only re-elected or able to elect the candidates who they support to have electoral success if they meet the demands in terms of economic growth, in terms of economic stability. Who is the partner that at this stage is more able to provide that to Latin American countries? China, because the United States is focused on making itself great again, to quote Donald Trump's motto. China is very likely to take advantage of an eventual continuation of the trade war in terms of its consequences for Latin American countries.
How do you think Latin American countries should go about in their relations with China to get the best benefit, the most benefit of it? Are they doing well? I mean, going on business as usual is enough?
I don't think so. I think Latin America could increase its bargaining power vis-a-vis Beijing. As I said in the previous answer, there is this criticism that our relation, the Latin American relation with China, is neo-colonial. That is, we simply export raw materials and get back investment and manufacture goods. That's somewhat true, as I already said. And what Latin American countries could do in that regard? Well, try to persuade Chinese investors through very strategic state action to bring investments to sectors other than infrastructure and agribusiness. Infrastructure particularly is an first step towards persuading any type of foreign investor to apply their money, their resources, their capital to more sophisticated economic activities.